Hi. That's a beautiful crowd. Thank you. Nothing much going on a Monday night in Chicago, right? That's your okay. I'll take it. Thank you for coming. Did you get to know each other? Who did you know? Who did you? All right. Can you tell me something about her? No. That's something about me. What's about her?
Yeah, she's a big fan. We're both big fans of Full Frontal M.D.
Oh, so we have something in common already. I see something there. Thank you. Great. All right. I'll be calling on people. I'll call you. All right. Okay. All right.
All right.
Hey, Gigi.
Hey, Bassem, welcome. Bassem is often called the Jon Stewart of Egypt. This allows Americans a quick point of reference, but I know that Jon Stewart will tell you that he is no Bassem Youssef. Don't get me wrong, I'm a huge Jon Stewart fan, but when it comes to reach, influence, and risking your life, Bassem wins. Bassem's weekly show broke many barriers. It was the first political satire show in Egypt, filmed in front of a live audience, and it was the most viewed television program in Egypt, with 30 million viewers per episode at its peak. Point of reference, that's more viewers than Donald Trump has Twitter followers. And on top of all of that, Bassem's show was produced under an authoritarian regime in the middle of a revolution where he was receiving death threats, protests, and calls for his arrest.
Yeah.
There's that. So we don't have nearly enough time tonight.
But can I stop you for a second?
Yeah, please.
Because John, for me, is an idol. To be mentioned in the same sentence as he is, it's just phenomenal. And I think what John has done, not just to inspire me, but to inspire a lot of people. I mean, how many comedy shows, political satire shows came out of that powerhouse that is the Daily Show. So no, it's numbers are nothing. The only reason that we had more numbers is just we were the only ones. Here you have a saturated market, so if you got a couple of millions, you're amazing. And that even changed in the 90s. In the 90s, I remember that the premiere of Seinfeld had 10 million views, and that was considered in the 90s a very, very low viewership. But now you have a lot of content. It's very saturated.
Right.
So the comparison is not fair. And
So never mind.
No, yeah.
Forget all of it.
Forget. Like just to be in the same sense as John is the greatest compliment I can ever get. I mean, I watched him for 10 years. It was an inspiration, and just to even be with him with the same like camera frame. For me.
So how
Yes.
was that when he showed up on your show?
No. You have to go back to 2012.
Okay.
Yes, because here's the thing. This thing of the Jon Stewart of Egypt, I planted that. I made it happen. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
So, when I was still doing this show on YouTube from my laundry room, I was inspired by him, and I had this wild dream that maybe someday I will go to the United States and I will meet him and I will be in the audience and watch him. So I had a kind of a scheme, a plan, which by the way is in my book. Did you see how I shamelessly promoted myself? Isn't that so American? But I'm going to tell you how it happened. So what happened was, I made sure that whenever somebody would come and interview me, and they asked me about what inspired you, what made you go on, what made you think, I would just mention Jon Stewart in any context, anything. Like, I mean, what kind of sitcoms, Friends, and also Jon Stewart, anything. So and it worked. And I remember the first English public article about me was on the Daily Beast, 2011, just 3 weeks after I went on YouTube, and it was titled "The Jon Stewart of the Nile," and that was the first ever English article published about me. And then, by the time I went to New York, he already heard of me.
Kind of brilliant.
Yes.
Okay, so will you back up for a second?
Yeah, sure.
you're a surgeon.
Yeah.
You're waiting for a visa to come to the States to work in Cleveland as a doctor.
Yeah, out of all places.
And it gets excoriated in the book, by the way.
Yeah.
I hope no one's from Cleveland.
Anyone? Wait, is that Robert? That you, Robert? Damn, where were you last night, man? All right, okay. He's the only guy from Cleveland that I can actually speak to.
Oh.
Oh, you two? Okay, two. And
So then YouTube happened. Explain what happened.
So at that time, here's the thing. There's a story that is rarely told about like how I started this show on YouTube. In 2010, like where there's no revolution in sight, I was again, as you said, a heart surgeon, and I wanted to really get out of Egypt because I was very frustrated of how the medical system was working there, and I just wanted to. I finished all my USM Elite exams, all my medical transfer exams, and I wanted to go. And I got accepted. I came to the United States and I did many interviews, and I got accepted in Cleveland, and I was very happy. And nothing tells you how desperate I was to leave the country, like being excited to go to Cleveland. And I always say, in my defense, even LeBron James at that time left. So I was just biding my time, waiting. And then a friend of mine, he was into YouTube and YouTube management. And YouTube in 2010 in Egypt and the Arab world was just stuff that we see from other people. We didn't have original Arabic content at that time. That sounds weird to think of it, but we didn't have anything that's originally made for YouTube. It was just like bits and pieces taken from television or from other countries. So he said, like, why don't we? He wanted to produce an original content, and he came to 2010 and he said, why don't you write something? And he came to me because, first of all, I'm his friend, so I'll do it for free. And second, he said, according to him, I had a way with people, speaking to them, and they would listen. I liked reading a lot about weird stuff and telling it to people. So I decided to do, so at that time, politics was off the table. Like politics, like you cannot not do political satire. So I choose something else, religion. So I came up with this idea. It was called Searching for a God, which is, in 5 minutes, I would explain a different cult or religion to people. And I would show people that, like, you are been here, you're just like looking in the world through this keyhole, thinking that, you know, there's your religion, your belief, but there are others who are willing to die for or bet their life for that kind of conviction. And so I started to do, you know, episodes about Scientology, about the Jehovah's Witnesses, about like Nation of Islam, different, and I thought, and I was, you know, very interested to do it. This, so I did it before Morgan Freeman did it with The Story of God, 2010. That's son of which, and and then it was supposed to be released 2011 New Year's Eve, but something happened. Do you remember that? There was a church bombing. And of course, like, you cannot speak about religion when you have such as, and you know, and I try, and I know it's like a dark humor, but I say, yeah, this is how we celebrate Christmas, and this is actual war on Christmas. So Fox News, you know, that's war on Christmas is not just Starbucks cups; it is something even worse in other places. So I was, and we said, all right, we're gonna hold back and wait for a couple of months. 25 days later, we had a revolution. And we scrapped the whole thing, and when the revolution ended, he came to me, you know what, let's do something but political. Let's do Jon Stewart. And this is how it started.
Huh.
Yes.
Okay, so the revolution...
Sorry, I give longer answers, I'm sorry. I should, yes, go on.
I don't think it's a problem.
Okay.
So, you do the YouTube videos after the revolution ends?
Yes.
And what happens when you release the YouTube videos?
Yeah, so I thought like I would have maybe 10,000 views, and I ended up with 5 million. At that time, 5 million was a big deal. Now your cat makes more than 5 million. But at that time that was huge, and sorry about the huge, and yeah, I did and in 3 weeks, every single um, network in Egypt now wants to hire me to do a show, and I said, what? I didn't plan for this. I thought that I would be discovered a year later when I come back from Cleveland. It's like, hey, it's this guy. Maybe make him come back. And it has to be. It was a difficult decision at the time, because I always say, in May 2011, the same day I was signing my TV deal, the papers from Cleveland arrived. It was HB1 visa, something that the people like us will never see again. Uh, yeah, so this is how it started.
And so you decided then that going to the United States wasn't the foremost important thing, doing this show was?
Well, I thought that like I'll give it a try. I will just put Cleveland on a side, and I'll give it a year and see how it goes. And if I fail, I'm just gonna go back to medicine. And since my mom is this like very strong Middle Eastern lady who wanted, who's welcomed the fact that I will not leave her and go to America, she says, all right, you can stay, but you should not forget that you're a doctor. So to please her, I continued doing my hospital shifts while I was doing the show for the first year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was very difficult for the patients to take me seriously.
So you sedate them, and that takes care of it.
Yeah, like I roofied them, yeah.
So social media, Facebook, Twitter, all of those things have been given a lot of credit for helping the Arab Spring and the revolutions, YouTube. Do you feel, what role do you think social media had in that whole era?
Well, as you said, it bypassed the gatekeepers, which is the state-run media. The media became irrelevant, and people started to take their news from Facebook and Twitter, which is a good thing or could be a bad thing. But at that time, it helped people it made people feel that they're not alone, and they can relate to other people, and this made the protests and the opposition much stronger. And yeah, at that time it was very helpful.
And do you feel that you were able to get the networks to agree to let you do this show because of the popularity of Facebook, of the YouTube?
Well, this is what was so special about like our show. We were the first ones who came from the people to the network, not the opposite. There were always people who were deciding what other people should say, should see. And for us, it was an already tried concept on YouTube, and to put it on television. I know that this now sounds very redundant, like this is what happens now. But at that time, that was very unusual for us, especially in the Arab world. And now, and this is why my relationship with many of the Egyptians who like the show, or the fans, they do not look at me as a celebrity. They look at me as one of them. So the dynamics between us is totally different. You find someone coming in, and he's just like, as if he's like, we've known each other for 5 years. We don't have these barriers of, and I thank God that this is the case, because I don't see myself as a celebrity, because I got famous at the age of 37, 38. So I wasn't born into it. I wasn't spoiled by being a celebrity at a younger age, as it came after being abused as a doctor for 15 years. So there's a kind of humbleness that comes with that. Yes.
And was satire always the medium through which you were going to do whatever it was you were going to do? Whether it was religion or politics or anything?
No, so the show about religion wasn't satirical. It was more informative. But satire is a big part of all our lives back in Egypt, but we always internalized it because we didn't speak about politics a lot, but we always had this smirky, cynical outlook to things, and this is what happens to people under dictatorships. So you have a lot to learn. And yeah, so yeah, well,
So, when you started the show, it was well received when you spoke out against President Morsi of the Muslim Brotherhood. And then you continued to critique the government, and General al-Sisi came in, and things started to change, and the tide turned a bit. So how is it trying to do comedy and satire when the tides are turning or it doesn't feel the same for you?
well, there's always a lot of pressure associated with doing the show. And if any of you saw the movie, which I saw for the first time with the rest of the people in the movies, I didn't have a chance to see like an earlier cut.
Tickling Giants.
Yeah, I went in. It was Tribeca Film Festival, and I went into the movie theater not knowing what to expect, and it was a very hard and emotional experience. And I could see how depressed I was away from the camera, and when the camera rolls, I'm just like I'm this totally different creature that I have to perform, and it was almost as living as there was like living with a split personality, having to bear this kind of pressure for me, with my team, with my family, and then when camera rolls, there's no excuse. If you do a bad show, you can say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm under a lot of stress." You can't, it's like, I'm sorry, I'm not feeling well. You can't do this. And it was just the show. But what you have mentioned about like the changing of the tide, that even added uh, an additional layer of stress, because there were the people who were closer to you who turned against you. There were people within my family, people within my closest friends, people who known me for 20 years since high school, who considered me as an enemy of the state. People who believed all of this crazy propaganda that was said about me, including that I was a spy, a paid operative, and one of the craziest stories that I said before, and it's mentioned in my book, is that there and this is it's too absurd to be true, and it was all in print. It was like in black and white that they accused me of being an operative by CIA, and I was recruited by Jon Stewart. Now you have to think either Jon Stewart is extremely smart or the CIA is broke, and this is why I'm starting to believe maybe he's not really in an animal farm, and. And people believed a lot of that stuff. They believe that the Islamists believe that I am someone who's an anti-Islam, atheist, operative of the West, while the pro-military thought that I'm like a secret Muslim brotherhood like Obama, and I'm also an operative of the West. So it seems that everybody is operative of the West.
Well,
except Trump, he's an operative of someone else. Ah, okay. Did you see what I get?
That's in your book too.
No, yeah, maybe. That everything.
So, so here's the other question I have. Watching the movie, and it's a really good movie if you get a chance to watch it, which you've seen it, it's terrific. You do get the sense that things turn, and it was very difficult for you in the end. The other thing you get a sense of is you're very protective and supportive of that team you built that was doing the show. And watching it, I was struck by how many women there were making the show with you. And I'm curious, is that indicative of how things are in Egypt? Was that you? What's that?
So there is not a single interview that people don't ask here in America. I never get asked this question in the Middle East.
Right.
See, people here are too sensitive, like, so you have so many women in your team. How was it like? We never thought about it. We hired them because they were better. That's it. We didn't really think of anything. I mean, we had 80% of our team because they were more dedicated. They worked harder, and they stuck around and they did the job. We didn't think of a quota. We fired men and women alike. And we hired men and women alike. It just happened that the people who would stuck and stuck it out and were more better than in their job were women. And the senior producer, Hind, she was basically, I called her Mama Hind. She's 10 years younger than me. I called her Mama Hind because she was basically the mother of the team. And I kind of like, I trusted her with my life. But I didn't think that she's a woman. I didn't think that these people are men or women. I just, it was whoever will do the job. So I didn't really think about it. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
So today, can you return to Egypt?
Yeah, I always say that Egypt is like Hotel California. You can check in anytime you want, but you can never leave. Yeah, well, is there something official? No. But do they need something official? Every single day I hear about another friend, activist journalist, who's being banned from flying, who's have his belongings confiscated. So why would I put myself in this situation? Why risk it? And plus, why would I go back? I mean, there's two reasons why I go back. First of all, I do kite surfing, and we have the best beaches in the world. And I miss kite surfing a lot. At least you can go there in the water without wearing a wetsuit, which is something I really miss. It's just, come on. It's the ocean. It's water. You should be there in your swimming trunks, not a wetsuit. And the second thing I miss is mango, because I love Egyptian mango, and you guys do not have mango. What you think is mango tastes like cucumber. You need to be re-educated about your definition of mango. So these are the two things that I miss. So, but otherwise, all of the things that I have actually, I loved and I cared about in that country, my family, both of my parents are dead, but they died recently. I had everything that I worked for, this, success in a field that I was not expected to be successful at, was taken away from me. So I think, why would I go back? And so when people ask me another question, they ask me, don't you miss Egypt? I was like, yes, of course I miss Egypt, but the Egypt that I miss and I love is not there anymore. You could be in exile while you are living in your own country. We can be intellectually, you can't find yourself compatible intellectually with the people around you. You can become an outsider even when you are inside. Mm.
So you never expected to leave Egypt, probably, early on?
No. I mean, for me, it was scary to actually have to make the move. And I had to make a move from Egypt to Dubai, and then from Dubai to the United States. And I live now in California, in Los Angeles. Yeah, it's great.
And you're raising a
They
daughter?
have something called Sun.
You're raising a daughter?
Yeah, she's 5.
And how is that, raising a daughter in exile in another country?
Children don't really feel exile. They know that there's something called Egypt, and they know that this is America. But she is comfortable. Children are very flexible, and she knows. She's much more fluent in English. She hardly speaks Arabic. That's why I insist that she goes back to Egypt to get some Arabic fed to her. And but she tells really good jokes in English. You want to hear one?
Yes.
Yeah. So I said this yesterday in the movie. So she went to her mom and said, "Mommy, why did the little boy ate his homework?" So I said, like, "Why?" I said, "Because the teacher told him it's a piece of cake." And she's 5. She's smarter than me.
Will you counsel her towards medical or stand-up
Never
career?
medical. No. That's a death sentence. No. Why medical? Why? There's like no.
Okay.
But if she wants to do it, she can do whatever she wants. Because I'm a dad that does not stand in the way of her daughter, but not medicine. No.
So during the last presidential election season, you traveled the country, and you did a series for Fusion. And I think we'd be curious to know, what did you learn about us as Americans doing those interviews and traveling through the country? You saw things that a lot of us don't actually see.
Well, I didn't learn anything new because I was a big follower of American politics. It was George W. Bush 2.0, but much worse, and so it's the same rhetoric, the same. But what was new this time that I came from a place where everybody is also living in his own echo chamber, who would they refuse to deal with facts if it would contradict with their ideology. So for them, ideology is much more important. And what I found is more interesting is that when you sit here and you stand and if you are if you want to if you're using facts and you want to tell the truth, you need to convince people, right? But there are other people who don't care. They can just like throw lies, and it doesn't matter as long as they confuse people. So, so that was the thing. It's not about like who's believable anymore. It's like what kind of confusion can I cause? It's like a lot of smoke and mirror, and I find this interesting. And there was a rally that I went to in a small town in Georgia, and Trump was there. And I remember the guy who came before him, and he was, you know, people was just cheering for anything that he would say. You know, it's like, well, if Trump, and then he said like, if Trump didn't repeal Obamacare, didn't do this, didn't do that, didn't do this, didn't do any of his promises, but he built a wall, would you still vote for him? Like, people, yes! Seriously? And it's just like this hyperbole of like, yeah, you know, you sure, you know, we have the same thing too in Egypt. It's like, yeah, we are greater than everybody, and everybody hates us, and everybody wants to take us out, and they're jealous of us, and they are. It's the same thing. It's the same. We have the same narrative in the media. It's like, oh, America is want to destroy Egypt. Seriously, they are giving you $1.3 billion of aid each year. So it's like, so it is. It's the same rhetoric. Like no difference whatsoever.
So do you have pointers for us?
Me?
Yeah. Isn't it?
You want to take pointers from me?
Revolutions for...
Yeah, this is for them to buy the book. But seriously, I mean, well, I mean, since we are doing very well in Egypt, yes, of course, I'm going to tell you. Well, no, here's the point. I think the only thing that I can say is, and I repeat myself a lot in that, it's from a political satire point of view. People have this fantasy about satire that it can solve everything. That satire in itself is enough. It's not. Satire is just a starting point. It's just like a point where you can get more people aware of what's happening. But we, as satirists, have a limit. We are not activists, we're not politicians, we're not freedom fighters, we're not journalists. We have a limit, and that limit actually ends at you. If the people don't use that, if the people continue using it as just a catharsis, and they'll just laugh their ass off and they're very happy, it's not going to make any difference. But if you use it as one of many tools to use it as to organize, to go out and to vote and cast your vote, now you make a difference. And I just in California, like after all of this, the turnout in the elections was 12%. Although people were so hung up on going into the Women's March and filling up 750,000 people, but when it came to casting the vote, people were lazy. And this is how John Kerry lost for Bush for the second term in 2004. People just stayed home. And the same thing happened in this election in Michigan and Pennsylvania. So it's just, and I had this too. People were like watching me and laughing, but they wouldn't go further. So you just speak, you're just operating in vacuum, and that's dangerous. Yeah.
Well, on that note, one last question before we take questions from the audience, and that is, so what are you going to do now that you're here? How are you continuing? What are you...
Well, I am, as I said, I'm in Los Angeles. I'm blending in quite well. I'm driving a Prius. I'm vegan. Yes. I am, I'm trying to become gluten sensitive. I wake up every morning finding a new thing to offend me. Living the, California life. But right now I'm trying to find my own foothold in American media, and it's hard. It's difficult to come at the age of 43 to leave everything behind and start from ground zero again. It's difficult with a different language, different audience. It's not my native language. It's not. It's like I have to unlearn everything and learn stuff again from the beginning. And there is someone with the call for prayer on his phone. Hello, friends. Hello. People get removed from planes for things that are much. So let's not get the white people scared here, okay? And yes.
I think you do pretty well with English.
Yeah, but no, it's different. It will never be like someone who's been. I mean, you're living in Los Angeles, and it's a cutthroat competition. There are people who are like younger, more beautiful, more attractive, more talented, who've been there for been struggling for long, and I come here people who call this a mid-age crisis. And I do stuff that like people who are half my age who wait tables do. I go to improv classes, I take acting lessons, I try to not to be casted in Terrorist Number 3. And maybe Terrorist Number 1. So I'm trying to pitch ideas too, but this is Hollywood. You pitch stuff, you get rejected. You pitch again, you get rejected, and when people ask you, "What do you do in Hollywood?" It's like, "I'm working on a script. I'm having projects," which is a way that you're not doing anything. But meanwhile, I'm having live shows that I take around the country. It's a one-man show that I go around and I give people a sense. It's a different. It's a mixture of stand-up, a storytelling, a talk. And I pitch these ideas to networks, get rejected. I just wrote a book, and I'm supporting the documentary. And we'll never know. I mean, 2 years ago, I never thought I would be here. 5 years ago, the only theater that I was in was the Operations Theater. So life is full of surprises. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And on that note, thank you very much. This has been terrific. They tell me that there are microphones that people can...
And can we have the house lights?
Oh.
Yeah, oh my God. I thought that, you're here, guys. I thought this was taped laughter.
So apparently there's microphones over here, people waving. And anyone with questions, you're supposed to walk to the microphone? Is that how we're doing this? Oh, okay. All right. And there's going to be a book signing afterwards, just...
Oh, yes, in the lobby.
FYI.
No, so here's in the lobby, I'm going to sit there, and by the way, just to get synergy, you don't have to buy, if you want a picture, you don't have to buy a book to take a picture. I'm going to sit there, I'm going to be in line, I'll be very happy to take a picture of every single person of you, and it's not a prerequisite. But if you buy, and you push me up to the New York Times bestseller, that will piss off Trump.
Thank you so much for that. The Egypt that you love and the America that you love, what do those two places have in common?
What are two countries have in common? It's like people who are trying to change. The only difference is that people who are trying to make a change in Egypt are oppressed, and people are here still have the freedom of expression to do it. They just need to organize. But I think, they have. But it's the same. What I see, especially the political side, is like the same echo chambers. And by the way, echo chambers exist on both sides, not just conservatives. Many of our liberals like going back home every night, having these wet dreams that Donald Trump will be impeached, and it's not going to happen that easy, So, and even if you impeach, you'll have Mike Pence. So, yeah.
Hi there.
Hey.
My question is, obviously you started something really important in Egypt and now you're not there doing it anymore. So has anybody taken up the torch on your behalf, and what is your opinion about the media and satire there now, and how people are making their statements?
So in Egypt, no political satire, not even in Egypt, in the Arab world, political satire is totally taboo. There are like now people from authority who attend the taping of comedy shows to make sure there's no political jokes. This is how it is right now. And I was offered to come back to Egypt. I was offered from like high up officials to go back and do my show, and do political satire, but to be with a certain understanding. And which of course you can read right through that they wanted me as a makeup on their face to say, hey, we have democracy, he's back. But you know that it was not going to happen. So they're not going to allow this kind of political satire. Or there are like in Egypt, there are like wonderful, talented comedians, but they're only allowed to do social satire. Which for me, I mean, this is what they can do. They cannot do anything more really. But I think if comedy doesn't deal with the everyday grievance with people, it's not a comedy. It's a distraction. And this is what they want. This is how comedy is used in where I come from. A distraction. So an example of that, and I was kind of like debating if I should have, maybe try and push the limit. So we had a big issue in Egypt last year. The biggest thing in the news was us setting off 2 islands to Saudi Arabia. We just woke up in the morning and they found that our government is just giving 2 islands, 2 strategic islands, to Saudi Arabia, which is horrible. So people went in protest and they were arrested for protesting that a piece of the land is being given to another country. And not a single comedy show mentioned a single joke about this. So if you have like a hot political environment and you leave all of that and you speak about and you crack jokes about traffic or marriage or bureaucracy, you're betraying your audience. And this is why it's totally impossible. And your second half of the question, how is comedy like doing here?
No, they're saying, has anybody tried to take up?
No, it was very, very difficult. There's none in Egypt right now. Even there are people who tried to do online, many of them were picked up and actually arrested.
Great. Thank you. So many comedians. Oh, this corner. Far corner.
That would be a nice game. Yeah.
So many comedians here, they tell a lot of political jokes, and then others get really involved in the political process. Where do you find that balance? And do you see yourself actually getting involved in Egyptian politics to a further extent than just making jokes?
No, I personally I wouldn't choose to be involved in politics. I think it is something. I can't even imagine myself. I've already suffered enough being as a satirist. I can't even imagine myself being in a political fight because it's horrible, it's dirty, and your family get even more affected when that happens. I don't know, but 5 years ago I didn't think of being a satirist. But I would prefer that comedians would stay in their own zone of comedians. But someone like Al Franklin, for example, he made the switch and he became a full-time politician. I think it's different for each one.
So my question is, and I wrote it down right here, do you have any advice for any Egyptian youth now? And I'm asking this because right now in Egypt, for the past few years, there's been a wave of depression. They're very let down from the revolution. They don't know if, and personally with myself too, should we fight the government head on, or should we seek positions from within to change over time, or should we leave it as a whole because they don't respect people with ideas or change?
So I try as much as possible to stay away from giving people advice because, I'm not the best person to give advice. I would have benefited myself. But I think I think it is going to be stupid to go to fight the government head on right now. And I think they are on their own path of self-destruction, especially economically. I think what you can do as an Egyptian young woman or man is to make yourself better at what you do, because the time will come when your efforts and your expertise will be needed. But and I think you should focus on yourself right now instead of like being pulled into this endless abyss of depression that is happening. And I'm sure that many of us here Egyptians feel exactly what I'm saying. And I think, oh, big clap for depression. Hey, depressed people, yeah. And so yeah, I think we need to work on ourselves to be better at what we are, and if the time allows, because sometimes you could be on the right side of history. You could have the the better argument, but the circumstances are not right. So it's a matter of like when the time comes, and we'll never know.
I only ask this because also I've met so many Egyptians here in the U.S. who are professionals who work for Egypt or in the UN or anything, and so many have told me, Sharuk, like, the government does not allow for me to go further. If they did, awesome, but...
Yeah, well, if you work for the government, that's something else. Yeah.
So, I think when the Arab Spring was beginning, and for many of us who had family or personal connections with the Arab world, or even just basic empathy, there's a lot of excitement and thought of the promise of, say, seeing Hosni Mubarak, like, be forced from office, and even some of the things that were happening in Syria. And it feels like, there was a lot of sobering reality after that. And I wonder if, looking back, since you were there at the ground level and sort of living through these things, the transition to the Morsi regime, and then after the Morsi regime was taken down, some even worse things happening maybe. Looking back at that whole process, what do you think, we can learn both as critics, observers, but also as participants in these kinds of things, and also, for the Egyptian people, like what might have gone differently, what might have been, or do you see it as still an open process that ultimately, we're working through the kinks of like getting out of this this period, this kind of purgatory that Egypt seems to be in now?
So the worst thing that happened to the Arab Spring is like people dealt with it as an Instagram account. They think that his revolution don't work in 18 days. And they were like, oh my God, look at the Arab Spring. And I was like, oh my God, it's so yesterday now, we're going to move over. It doesn't work. I mean, it's not like likes and shares. I wonder what would be Facebook and Twitter feeds will be like during the French Revolution, when it took 200 years. It's just like, I think people, 70 years ago, Europeans were killing each other for military dictatorship. And 200 years before that, they were killing each other for religious dictatorship. We're just doing both of both of them at the same time right now, just making it faster. But it is a process, and we were fooled, we were naive to think that just removing Hosni Mubarak is the end of things. You are dealing with a much deeper state that was in place for 60 years, and you cannot take it out by 18 days. And even after the 18 days, the revolution was never in control. It was always in the hands of the military, the true rulers of the country. And looking back, I still think that we never had a chance, because the Muslim Brotherhood just think about what they want. And they colluded with the military, and then they were, toppled by them. And the same for us. We thought that we can get rid of the Muslim Brotherhood using the military, and the military will let us do our own beautiful democratic process, and we were naive. So it is a process. It's a learning process, and I think it's a generation issue. Maybe the second generation will be much smarter than us, and maybe it will take much longer. It will take much more than just singing and chanting in the square for 18 days. It's this fantasy is not really real. Yeah.
Hello. I was just wondering, I have two small questions. In all your time with social media, what is your definition of success? And also, there's a lot of young adults here who are pursuing their own success. What would your number one advice to them be?
Advice.
Everyone wants your
I
advice.
really. Here's the thing about advice. Like, what works for me doesn't necessarily have to work for you. I mean, because what worked for me didn't work for people before me. I think everybody has his own personal experience. So that's why all of these self-help books and all of these self-exploration books that makes you like, this is how we do it. I think it's bullshit, except that book, of course. But this is not a book to tell you how to do it. In this book, it's my story. It's how I did it. And maybe if I did the same exact thing 6 months later or 6 months before, it wouldn't work. It was just circumstances. It was the right time. And I think it's everybody would find his own niche, his own advice. I cannot advise you. I don't know what you do. I don't know there's no manual for success in social media. Or else people will just read books and do it. And the more of these books are sold, the more people who lose are there. It doesn't work this way. I think you find your own experience and find your own voice and find your own success. And your definition of success will be a different definition of success than mine. A different is it money? Is it popularity? Is it doing what you want regardless of money and popularity? It's different from each one. So that's why I try as much as possible not to give advice. How old are you?
I'm 19.
You are half my age. You are already in a different set of circumstances. You have stuff that was not available for me. So you have maybe a much better understanding and a much better judgment of what works for you. So, that's why when I go to college and people say, what's your advice? It's like, my advice? Don't take anybody's advice.
That's actually good advice.
Yeah. And then if they take this, oh my God, my mind is blown right now. Damn. Okay.
So I was wondering if I could get some advice.
You're just you keep asking for it.
I host a satirical late-night talk show here in Chicago, and for that American shameless self-promotion, it's besteveningever.com. Best evening ever.
There's so many plugs in here. Okay, yes. Yes,
a couple questions about, starting as a doctor and a surgeon and moving into comedy writing. Obviously, there's more to it than just being witty. You have to manage people. You have writers' rooms. You have to understand the equipment you're dealing with. I wonder if you have, maybe something that was difficult in that transition, getting into it. And the other one, which is a little deeper, so take your time. There are a couple ways of going about satire. I feel like you have someone like Jon Stewart on The Daily Show who could have someone on from the Bush administration and ask them directly about the Iraq War and getting into that. And you have your show, which was more, we're not going to have people on, but we're going to talk about what they're doing. And I feel like there's a difference between satire and access there. What you feel like is more effective, I guess, or better, or what you like more?
So for the first part, going from a doctor into comedy writing, I really didn't depend on talent as much as the process. So being the nerd I am as a doctor, I created a process. It was a brutal process. We had to work certain types of hours. We had certain tasks each day to do, and then working hard, we will come up with something good. So it was the process, basically. It was managing people who might be funnier than me, more talented than me. But sometimes you find people who are talented, they're not very disciplined. So I was the guy with the whip, and this is how I worked. So the second question, I'm sorry, I didn't.
It's kind of abstract.
Yeah. Give it to me as a question with a question mark at the end. Yes.
A question gets an answer.
Yes.
Do you like more satire, as in writing about people, or access and having them on and making that conversation funny?
No, I prefer satire.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Besteveningever.com.
It's 2 to 5.
Yes.
Thank you for your wonderful talk. I have a question, but I articulate myself better in Arabic if it's okay to ask.
No, we have to respect. All right. Or
you can translate.
okay, you say it in Arabic and I will translate. But okay. since you and I, from the Arab world, we know
Okay.
that it's a question.
Yeah.
It is not an opinion.
Okay.
It is not an abstract. It
Yeah.
is not 15 minutes of
Yeah.
saying stuff.
True.
Because we are very good at that in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So it starts with why, when, how,
Yeah.
what, and it ends in a question mark, and it takes 15 seconds.
No, it's
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna go in English. It's kind of philosophical.
Ah.
You said.
You can say it in Arabic, by the way. You can say it and I can translate.
You said, why go back? It's very thought provoking. There is a sense of like giving back to the place we grew in, what we call home. In this day and age, is their home? I mean, is it a natural sense, or is it something that you get over when you grow up? I mean, as a cardiac surgeon, you can go back to Egypt and be overloaded with the patients and the operations, or you can stay here and do published articles and have a quality time in doing what really has the impact.
The question.
The question is, why go back? Is the question valid in the first place? And this second part, I mean, is there any reason to give back to the place you came from?
There is a lot of reasons, of course, to give back to that place, but if you are allowed to give back to that place. I was there and I tried to stay as much as possible, and I couldn't stay much longer. I mean, staying would be on the expense of my safety and the safety of the people around me. So it becomes counterproductive. So, I mean, all of these beautiful phrases of giving back and whatever, it has to be executed in context. You have to look at the circumstances and decide. And so yes, I would love to give back if I was allowed to. I wouldn't have even left if that procedures, that process, that show, that program, I was allowed to continue. There was no reason for me to leave. By the way, I had a green card when I had my show in Egypt, and I never thought of leaving. So I came when I couldn't stay there anymore. You know. So it's just like a matter of circumstance. Everybody is different. Maybe you can, but I can't. Yeah.
أهلا وسهلا.
Alan? I told you, do not speak in Arabic. You scare white people.
Can I vouch for the mango and mustard though? It is the best, by the way.
Yes.
Just saying.
Manga Awesi. Yes. Yes.
So my question comes from being born in Kuwait personally, and I migrated to Chicago straight from there.
Was that after 1992?
No, it was actually right before the war of Kuwait. So my dad migrated, and it happened a year later.
Okay.
But anyways, my question is, do you feel, because when my parents met in Egypt, the culture and the living over there in the 60s and 70s different than it is now? Do you feel that it had to do with the poverty level?
It has nothing to do with the poverty level.
Or do you, okay. What do you think influenced that change? Because Egypt was known as the Hollywood of the Middle East. And now it seems like everything is going, I don't know if it's going backwards, because then it would go back to the way my parents lived in Egypt.
No,
and now it's just become so conservative, it's difficult.
It's not just conservatives, everything else. It's the incompetence of everything. This is a mixture of education, of awareness, of openness, and the military dictatorships don't allow any of this. So when people think, oh, it is the religious thing, well, who do you think allowed it? Who have controlled the educational program in the schools for the past 60 years? Who allowed the Sharia, the Islamic Sharia, to be part of the constitution? It was Sadat. It was 1970s. People have this idea that like it's the religious people. No, it's the military, and the military has the same exact mentality, because you cannot speak back. You cannot talk to a higher rank. So they would use fake nationalism. They would use religion, and it happened in Sudan before when Jafar Numeri felt that the country was slipping away. He made a deal with the Muslim Brotherhood, and he instated the Sharia. So it's a mixture of everything. If you have like military dictatorships are incompetent in all different ways. So you have decline in education, you have decline in awareness, you have decline of everything, and then when you become weaker, you use religion, and that's what Sadat did in the 1970s. I mean, all of these Salafi radical groups were made up by the Egyptian Interior Ministry. They did it to combat Muslim Brotherhood, ironically. So the whole thing of how we got back or how we declined is a direct product of military dictatorship. Yeah. And I know it sounds a little bit, difficult to understand, but the military people are as conservative as the religious people. If you are in Egypt right now and you're taking the car to Sinai, the people who stop you and check for your alcohol are not religious people. They are the army soldiers. So it is the military, of course. Yes.
Hi. But with you transitioning from, a doctor to a comedian, how do you deal with all the negative stuff people have to say about you about being a bad man or being a terrorist or whatever? How do you deal with all that?
I don't read the comments on the comment section. That is the only thing, because I used to read them and it gave me, it depressed me. Yes.
I think we have time for one more.
مش مبسوطة من الإجابة؟
It's what I thought, but my last name is Johnson now, so
Hi, Johnson. Yes. Where is the
last one?
We as Americans have a lot of freedom to express ourselves, as you said earlier, compared certainly to Egyptians. If you were an American and you aren't maybe going to be an American, or you're living in the United States now, so you have a great deal of freedom. We have a great deal of freedom. If an Egyptian would come to the United States today and have the freedom that we have, we should basically be going totally batshit crazy on social media, shouldn't we? I mean, shouldn't we just be totally expressing ourselves with much less restraint than we even are? We're more free than we know. Is that right?
I didn't get that. I didn't get the last part. Sorry.
We're more free than we know. We have more liberty than we even take advantage of.
Okay.
Would you advise us to make even more use of that liberty?
Some advice.
Does that make sense?
So first of all, I am in no way in a position to advise people how to use the liberty. That's one thing. And I think that people should do whatever the hell they want. They want to go crazy on social media, do it. You want to go and insult people, do it. Even if you want to be racist, I mean, we cannot stop it. And I will give an example that's not American, that's basically more international. So you remember, of course, and this is something that I gave advice to my people. So when people were offended by the Charlie Hebdo caricature, and before that the Danish cartoons, and we were all up in arms and said, all right, so you go and you make them scared, and all right, so what do you think will happen? You're going to close down Charlie Hebdo? Bravo. You have the internet. It never closes. It's open 24 hours for everybody. You cannot stop people. You cannot draw the line. I mean, I'm sure, like one of the side effects of democracy that you have to listen to ideas and opinions that you don't like. It's part of the process. If you don't like it, you can choose what to see and not to see. But it's people expressing opinions. And we live now in a day and age that many of the ideas that kept in someone's mind and people will not say it in public. So now all our brains are splattered into social media and people can see what's inside, and it's a scary place to be. And that's human nature. People are expressing themselves and saying whatever the hell they want, and there is no way for me or you or anybody to draw the line to anybody. It's absolutely impossible. Is it a good thing? It's a bad thing? I don't know. It's the way it is. Because there's absolutely no practical way to stifle the freedom of expression on social media, no matter how annoying, how horrible, or how excruciating it can get. It's just the way it is. We have to deal with it. Or else we can just give up technology. And I don't think any of you is ready to give up on those Instagram photo pictures that you take every day. So yeah, we have to live with it. Yes.
On that note, thank you again very much. more applause.
All right, I'm gonna be in the lobby then.